let's have a lesson and discussion on this work. Follow the lesson for free and just pick up all the tips. But if you're interested, I do have a sheet music edition of this work as well as the bolero that I've paired with it. And there's a link for that in the description. This is a very great little piece with numerous different sections to it that you can work on. And there's not too much to say other than there's a very prominent melody to bring out in most of the cases here. And so your job is really just to present that, and at first to present it as the prominent musical voice, and then to start adding some excitement to it. And although you're going to phrase it really nicely, there's also lots of opportunities in this work to make strong statements with a lot of the content. So I think we're just going to dive right in, because the texture of the piece is pretty traditional. You know, we have a melody and accompaniment. So in terms of the musical balance, we want to bring that melody out and soften the accompaniment a little bit, at least enough to make that melody prominent. And then, but then as we go through the piece, I think we'll talk about the different sections, since there are quite a few. So the opening measures up to measure 16 are some pretty strong statements. We have a real strong, just octave statement. And it's extroverted. I try to phrase it a little bit. And I think if you elongate the half notes, you'll get some phrasing out of it. But it should be pretty extroverted in your face, because the contrasting statement is a little bit softer and just so melodic. And I do quite a bit of a rit. And then the piece really starts here with this little waltz that happens. So yeah, that intro section, strong, extroverted, followed by very melodic and a little bit softer. In terms of those octave fingerings, there's no super good fingerings. You're going to have to jump fingers around. But because of its extroverted nature, it's okay to have a little bit of detachment there. I mean, you want to work on your legato, but it's so extroverted that a little bit of detachment works with the jumping of the fingers. And it's a little bit showy even in a small way. The following section, though, is just, I decided to do it in first position. You can do it upper position if you like. But because of the arpeggios that occur in it, I felt like using the chord shapes that are used throughout the piece. Now here, when it begins, a little bit soft on this pattern, because you want this melody to really pop out of that texture. So just go a little bit soft. And then I make sure to use A, M, A. That way I and M can be left for the accompaniment pattern there. So you can just use that through that section. Very melodic. That little thing there, just keep it crisp. It's a little bit of a stretch, but single line. Now, at measure 33, we have a new section. Pretty rhapsodical in a way, very reminiscent of Tárrega. So just make sure to, again, you're just bringing out that top melody and a little bit of figuration there. But you're just really trying to get those top notes. For measure 41, same thing. Then the pattern just changes a little bit to a more continuous pattern. Then we have this little flourish. Now in that flourish, I do use a little little tiny hinge bar here. I do that because in the end, I want that open E there, and it just works out better than trying to do a fourth finger and a full chord shape there. So some people are probably a little bit unfamiliar with those hinge bars where you cover the fourth string and the third string with your first finger, and then you get the C sharp with your second finger. Makes for something that's really nice and clean. I try to avoid hinge bars like this whenever possible because it's a little bit of a funny technique that we use. It's like it doesn't adhere exactly to perfect left hand technique, but sometimes it's just so relevant, and some people use it throughout the piece earlier in the waltz, but I reserve it just for this one spot. When you're working up speed with that, just make sure you're going to the beat, you know. By the way, I use my third finger kind of as a guide finger to get that D. It's very secure in that way. I often will practice just up to that note on the downbeat there. It's actually a pretty easy passage to play unless you're not used to that hinge bar there and the fourth finger. You have to be aligned with your hand, otherwise you can't reach that C sharp. So just swing that hand around. Once you're used to it, it's actually not that hard, but at tempo, of course, you can lose control of the situation. So going on from measure 57, much of the same. Then we have a whole nother new section, but same thing here, melody based. So just really bring out that top note of the texture. Same thing there when you're getting those chord shapes. If you're aligned, if your hand is aligned, it's no problem. But if your hand is misaligned, it's impossible. Even the slight misalignment of your left hand makes that incredibly difficult. You can see I can't even reach the note with my fourth finger at the moment. So, but if I swing that around, it's pretty comfortably there. And not swing it around. If I keep my hand aligned, it's right there. But especially in this piece with all the chord shapes like this, our hand will misalign itself. So you have to be ready and make sure that in the previous measure there, that as soon as you play those open strings, that you align your hand properly. Same thing there. And then on the second ending, same thing, but different cadence. This is a great piece because it has so many different sections, and yet it's still quite a small piece. So there's a lot you can get out of it, and there's a lot of different musical characters that you can experiment with and different textures. So, well, I mean, the texture is somewhat uniform, but the different sections are all quite different. So lots to do there, lots to work on, even some opportunity to do a little bit of flash with that running flourish there. But in the end, the main focus is bringing out that nice melody and controlling that texture in a beautiful way. So focus on that first, and then you can slowly start raising the tempo to make it exciting in some sections, but your focus is that melody.